Buongiorno. Sorry. What a way to lead. Buongiorno tutti. Benvenuti tutti alla Olimpiade. Olimpiadi. Delle vendite a freddo. Io mi chiamo Rebecca. Como stai, everyone? How are y'all doing? How is everyone doing? What a weird opening shot. Like the TV was just on two people kissing. Welcome to day 11, which it's not even Valentine's Day, keep in mind. And we did Valentine's Day here. There was actually on the ski jump on Valentine's Day, they had a little picture of a heart back to the hill. The sad thing was, I'm like, if this dude jumps and he busts and spills, it's going to be on the heart. He's going to start bleeding, break all of his fragile little bones on the heart. Anyhow, but that didn't happen. Welcome to day 11, everyone. How is everyone doing? How is everything going? Has everyone recovered from our late start slash, I feel like I'm ripping y'all into my journey, which you've been great about, but I feel like I'm ripping you into my journey of driving around hills, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope everyone recovered from that. And for the people who don't know what I'm talking about, welcome to day 11. I hope you had a great weekend. My name's Beck. We're going to be diving straight in here. So today's topic is going to be the day and life of a top performing SDR. So I know that all the influencers do day in the life videos. So this is my spicy version of day in the life video of day in the life of a top performing SDR. Not what do they eat and when do they work out? What do they do and not do from a quota perspective, from an activity perspective? When do they do it to actually be a top performer? So especially with SDR, I would argue any role, but especially with SDR, it is about schedule. It is about a lot more about the math of how much you do and when you do it, et cetera, that can make you be a really successful. Reps who really pay attention to this are the ones for sure. I've never seen one who paid attention to this and paid attention to their inputs, et cetera, that wasn't successful. And I've also never seen someone who's successful that didn't pay attention to this to some degree. So we're going to jump in here, but that is the topic for today. It's a logistical topic, but it's for a prospector. I know we've done AE, but for a prospector, what are the things you should do and when should you do them to be able to hit quota? So why don't we jump and go ahead into lap one. So activity metrics for beginners or experts. Full disclosure, this might be a shorter episode. It's Monday. I want to give everyone a break. But also this might be this is probably going to be a shorter episode just in terms of the content for today. So I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. I'm not even going to ask in the chat. By the way, if you're out there, if you're listening to this on LinkedIn, sorry, that was really muddy. I want y'all to have a clear representation. Jump in the chat, say hi. I want to know who everyone is, what you're doing. So jump in the chat, say hi, and I'm going to do an interesting question today. So given all the breaks that I've seen, meaning people run into hill, what is the worst injury that you've ever had? That's what I want to know. What's the worst injury have you ever had? Have you broken a leg? Have you broken a finger? Have you broken I've done a couple of things. When I was a freshman and I was playing soccer, I volleyed at the same time as a girl, and she was 3 years older than me against the ball, like volleyed and side kicked the ball at the same time, except I was half of like a couple milliseconds later than her. So I absorbed all the shock and it shattered everything. Broke my growth plate, LCL, MCL, PCL. I didn't even know I had that in my knee. Pulled all of those and it broke my growth plate. Keep in mind, I was 5 foot at the time. I'm now 5'10". So this is in freshman year of high school. So I grew so aggressively in 1 year, that they called me High Waters Holland because all my pants were high waters, meaning there was a huge gap at the bottom because I was growing so aggressively. My mom didn't want to buy Mimi didn't want to buy me pants. So point being, that's my biggest injury. So I want to know your biggest injury if you're out there. So first piece, let's get into that because the pizza pie is rolling. Activity metrics for beginners and for experts. Again, this is not going to be that long of an episode, but for beginners and experts. So activity metrics that I would look at, and this is again, full-time prospector. So the full-time prospector normally sends around or makes around 40 dials a day, which yields about 4 connects. So one of the biggest issues to absolve or think about is connect rates, not just the quality of the message. Of like, if you could only improve one of quality of the message and conversion into a booked meeting because of it, or the amount of connections that you get based on time of day and was it direct dial or was it landline, et cetera, or farm tree, a phone tree, then it would be more useful to focus on the latter of how many connections do I get. But point being, most SDRs, the average Topo Bridge Group did a number of different reports, which shout out to Trish Bertuzzi if you're watching this. So 40 dials a day is normal, with 4 connects is normal, excuse me, and 35 emails is quote unquote normal. That's what's normal. I will say I had my reps on 100% personalized messaging, meaning every single email, well, 3 out of the 5 for the sequence were personalized. And granted, there's only 10% that was personalized. Well, I'd say about 15%, the actual premise and then the hook. And I wrote the rest, for them. And I gave them the upper time limit of, so even with the excuse of I'm personalizing all of my messages, I gave them the upper time limit for the personalized messages that it should take them no longer than 8 minutes. That was kind of a gift in my head. What they really get down to on average is around 3.5 minutes. And we had an activity metric of 35 emails per day and 60 calls per day. And they had no problem hitting those, even though they were completely personalized. I had some reps batting up into 100, 120 dials per day and 60 emails a day. Even though they're all personalized and they could get it done just fine. The main thing behind activity, and it's a huge contributor, I don't believe that it's not. Some people say, well, it matters if you're personalized, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I agree with you, but here's the thing. Those are the same people that argued with me that that you shouldn't spend forever on an email. So I'm like, pick one. Like, it's about quantity or quality. But even if you have personalization, which I do true blue personalization, and it more than I've seen anyone in the industry, meaning I very rarely get a personalized email to the degree that I have my reps and the teams that I train personalized to. Even with those, they were getting out, minimum. I had a minimum of 35 and 60, but they were getting up to 60 and 120, both within a day, even those 100% personalized messaging. One last thing that I will say, or 2 last things. Second to last is I know several different AEs. It comes down to will and accountability, and I got to make this happen. You can't coach that into someone. You can't train it into someone. You can't buy it. You can't bottle it up. And even within myself, there are times in my life where I wasn't there. And there are times in my life where I am there. And there's nothing anyone could do to get there. However, it is very important that you have that element. Usually it's accountability. They got something to lose. I know several different AEs who are, if you know who you are if you're watching this, it's a leader. And some of his AEs, even though they spend half of their time running demos during the day, truly half. They have like four demos or discoveries every single day on average. They're still crushing out 160 dials as an AE. It comes down to will. So I would say as a minimum, those are what it'd be for an SDR 35 and 60. Keep in mind, anything over 50 emails a day, and you're going to hurt deliverability anyway. So I would cut it off at 50. But a good metric that you at minimum should be hitting is 35 emails and 60 dials per day. And I count every dial or every email for 2 dials. So there will be some days where you're only emailing, for instance, of like that's a step in the sequence in outreach, for instance. There'll be some days that you're only cold calling. So if I was only cold calling, then I'd say that's 35 emails times 2 is 70. So 70 plus 60 equals 130 dials that I need to do in the day. If I was only emailing, then I would say, okay, take 60 and divide it by 2, which is 30. So 30 in the prerequisite 35 emails, I got 65 emails per day. But those are the metrics that I would hit that you have to hit for an SDR. If you're out there thinking, oh, well, I'm going to spend all this time, well, usually like 99, I'm going to be nice and say 99.9% of the time, what I see is just wasted time. of like social media, personal branding, like whatever that is. But I'd say 35 and 60, you have to hit at minimum to be in the game. Plus, it's a version to me of like how aggressive you are towards activity is how aggressive you are towards everything else, learning about your buyer, going to networking events, getting in the game. So I'd say those are the minimums, but I would just keep in mind that you can do more, but no more than 50 emails a day. I've never seen someone with drive and accountability that wasn't successful. That's just the facts. You can tell me it's all about being smart, and you can tell me it's all about research and blah, 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 which out of anyone, I'm usually the one fighting people on that by, on a side note. But you have to have the grit, and those have to be the activities that you have to hit to get enough reps. If you're only doing, let's say 15 or 20 calls per day, you're only having like 2 conversations, right? So you just need more reps in your system. You just have to go get your teeth kicked in over and over and over and over again. Part of learning and being successful is about learning objectively the stats, which people overlook, but part of it's subjective. So those are the activity metrics that I would hit. Let's go on to lap 2. Reset the pie. That's the first piece. Team Italia. It's Team Italia. All of the gear for the Italian team is done by Signore Armani, Giorgio Armani, who passed away in September. Y'all should look at the line. It's stunning. And it was really sweet. On a side note, one of the most special moments, I would say top 5 in my life, but certainly of the Olympics so far, is probably going to be number 1 for me, was seeing Andrea Bocelli sing, because I didn't know, and I know we're in the pizza pie. Give me a second. I didn't know if that's Italy's, like, when we think Italy, we think Andrea Bocelli, or whether that was really Italy's guy. And the answer is that is really Italy's guy. It was really impactful to hear them singing all of his songs with him. I just got goosebumps of like, even though they were 80,000, however many people are in there screaming his songs, they all knew him, that his voice still crushed the weight of all of them together. It was just a really cool moment. So anywho, if you want to go check out the Team Italia gear, Signore, one of the last things he did before he died was approve the designs for all of the gear, and it's really nice looking if you want to look into it. Anywho, okay, let's go into the second piece, second lap. Y'all, sometimes I like to just have fun, so you have to bear with me. Activity timing, what to do and when to do it. Okay, here's what most people do. Most people are going to send emails and make calls Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning for whatever reasons. Well, I know why. I'm going to get the logo in there. I think I know why, at least, is that's when they have the most gas in the tank, is the beginning of the week and beginning of the day. But they'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning from 8 a.m. to noon. Usually, sometimes I'll see up till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But the most successful times to send outreach and to make dials is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday afternoon from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. local time. 5 minutes before the hour and 5 minutes after the hour is going to be the most successful times. A lot of people will say, I'll hear the myth of like, they'll say, no one makes dials on Friday afternoon. And I'm like, no, you don't make dials, Brendan. People make dials, and that's the most successful time. So you have to keep in mind there's 2 things that from a logistical view that contribute to someone responding and someone actually taking the meeting. 3 things actually. Number 1 is the quality of the message. Did it get there? Blah, blah, which we go into in the cold email session. The second thing is the amount of stuff that they have to do at that given point in time. You have to keep in mind Monday morning, most people, y'all jump in the chat. What are you doing Monday morning in your job? Your email implodes. What do you do Monday morning? And what do you do Friday afternoon? I want everyone to jump in the chat. How many emails do you have? How many calls do you have? What are the things you're prioritizing? Every single leader that I've seen is just imploded on Monday morning. Of like, you have all the fires from the weekend and all the fires from last week, and you're at the beginning of the week, and they have the most gas in their tank as a leader. So it's like how relevant you have to be, how high priority you have to be is increased versus Friday afternoon, everyone's looking for the one last thing to do before they sign off for the day. And, that looks like work, but isn't really entrenched work. And so that's the perfect time to call. So someone finding something relevant enough to take action on, whether that's buying something or evaluating a conversation, whatever, is based on priority, based on the other things that are on that list. So Monday morning, there's a lot more things on that list. Friday afternoon, not nearly as much. So I would say Friday afternoon for sure. And the third element is that's when the least amount of reps are making them. So it's relative. I've noticed that even like you would think an Olympian, they're the top of their craft, they're extremely special, which they are, until they get around other Olympians. And then I've noticed there's like a pecking order. There's like a hierarchy within sports and then also within gold medal, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't going to tell a story, but I'm going to. I accidentally, when I was in for skeleton, which is an amazing sport, when I was in, what town was that? Cortina for skeleton. Before I went back and took a bus, I ran into someone. I was asking him for directions and I said, I have to use the restroom. And the Italians are so nice. He was like, this is top priority for me. So he was like, he took me basically into this, it looked like a house and I didn't realize a really, really nice house, like a gallery. And I walk in and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is Team Italia's house. All of a sudden, there was all these Italian Olympians, true Olympians around me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And everyone was dressed so nicely. There was like all this decor. I'm like, I am in team. This is the one house that they have of like, where you think of it like a club where you go to hang out. So they take me down to the bathroom and everyone's looking at me like, what is Streets Girl doing in here? And the point is, I was noticing as I saw different people talking to one another, blah, 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 as I was like completely stalking them. I'm like, oh, there's a pecking order in this room. You would think, every Olympian is super special, which you are. But if you're in a room with other Olympians, it's all relative. So their priority on whether they take a call or don't take a call is relative to everything else and relative to how many other people are calling them. If you're one of 200, much harder to get the call, for them to even talk to you. If you're one of 2, easier. So Friday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon is certainly when I would do the outreach. When I would craft it is Monday morning. Monday, I wouldn't send anything, period. I just wouldn't. It's wasted. That skeleton. Look at that. That's so gnarly. 90 miles an hour. Monday morning. Tuesday, shortly thereafter, I went to Team Italy. Monday morning, all day Monday, I would not send anything. I would craft the emails and I would do the research. And if I had any internal calls, I would get rid of them on Monday. If you're going to do any calls internally, I suggest being very specific about those meetings. I wouldn't do broad marketing meets, SDR meet, any meetings that aren't important, I would pull, or any meetings that are just for the sake of it, of like a coaching call for the sake of it, but you don't really get anything out of it. They don't really get anything out of it. Both sides don't show up prepared. I would pull. I'd be very intentional and meaningful with my time. But Monday morning is the day for junk. If you want to talk to me, it's on Monday morning. Tuesday, all day Tuesday for me still, I would do research on prospects, writing the emails, and any kind of internal meetings, but you're warming up a little bit. Wednesday afternoon is the first time I would start research or start doing the outreach. Then Thursday morning and afternoon, you can play it by ear. I would do send the email and make the cold call. And then Friday all day for sure. But Friday afternoon, I would double down. I would take advantage of that. There has been reps where I'm like, just change that one piece, or they'll be really encouraged to be like, back. I haven't booked a meeting the whole last month, and I booked 4 on Friday. I booked 2 on Friday. They're like, man, your training's really working. And I'm like, maybe, but that's yet to be told. I'm like, and I'll tell them and they'll be like, oh, you're just being falsely humble. I'm like, no, I'm being data driven. The thing that changed was that you called on Friday afternoon. Let's see if the training actually set. It's nice of you to say that. Let's see if the training actually set in and blah, blah, blah. But the thing that you changed Friday afternoon, it's really hard for reps because no one wants to make data set. It's just really, really difficult. But that's when I certainly would do them if you want to be the most successful, even if just for an hour, an hour. More is better than, 1 hour is better than 0. So that's when I would do the activity. Okay, let's go straight into lap 3. I'm taking on I take the time when it's necessary. I don't take the time when it's not. I'm embodying skeleton. What's important and why is it important? This is seriously wild to watch. Skeleton. This is a replay, but it is wild to watch. There's something that I really respected about skeleton was what I was most excited about for sure. But the thing that I was the most that I learned the most is I watched a lot of interviews on skeleton athletes, and you'd be like, who is nuts enough to do that? And I remember one of the athletes basically said, you're going straight down a hill head first at 90 miles an hour. But there's a point where you just decide, you're like, I'm not in control. There are things that can happen to me, and you just lean into that. And there's a silence in that, and there's a stillness in that, and there's a strength in that of knowing that you do not have control over everything. And I'm like, that's an important lesson. You do what you can, you prep for the most, but there are points in life where every point in life where you don't have control over a certain amount of things. So knowing that and kind of leaning into that, taking everything in the moment, I thought it was really cool learning. Anywho, lap 3, let's talk about taking control of your controllables. Control your controllables, but then know that you can control everything and be okay with that. Okay, number 3, what to learn and how to learn it to be the top SDR. Here is a really cool topic. To be the top SDR, to be the top AE, to be a good AE, to be a good SDR, it comes down truly to one thing. It really comes down to one thing. You can bend the math with other things, not enough though. And why would you? This one thing is so simple and so easy, both. I think it's just an aversion that we're not trained to think that this is important, but it truly is the most important thing. Learn about your buyer. If you do that, your meetings will increase. Your conversion to close one will increase. People will want to talk to you more. They'll see you as a consultant, and they'll be thinking in their head, even if I don't buy, this meeting is worth it, which is great. It means that naturally people want to be around you, not because of relationship necessarily, of true acumen and true value add. So I would be intentional about that, very intentional. It's kind of like working out. You have to be intentional. If you are up to the whims of, do I feel like it, or I'll squeeze it in whenever, it needs to be a building block of who you are as a rep, is learning about your buyer. The good news is, I am not kidding. If you do this for a week, you will see a difference. It's like the Ozempic of being a top performer. The more that you learn, it doesn't matter. All of these technique items of permission-based openers or blah, blah, blah. It's all nice and fine and good. And I did that in the cold call, the structure of the call. But I'm like, but if you get to that back half and you're not asking questions and finding unknowns, they're going to be like, and I hear that. I'm going to put sales trainers in the fire again because it's me and I'm razzed up of, we're the ones that train you hypothetically to be better. When I see examples of good cold calls online, it's them cracking a joke at the beginning and the buyer being like, ha, 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 ha. How can I help you today? The buyer's nice. And then they go into an elevator pitch, and 9 times out of 10, it's jarring. Because this is how the back of that half of the call goes, or they'll be posting results from their clients of who they've trained that have this as an email, and they see this as a win. The person's like, hey, great outreach or blah, blah, comma, but, and then they give an objection, a business reason of why it's not important to me. I'm like, that's the most important part. So the thing that I would learn, it is shocking to me of sales training should 15% be about technique, blah, blah, or what you should learn how to do. There are things that can help you have a great conversation and knowing from a stack ranking perspective, blah, blah. But number one, that's not where you're going to, that's not where you're going to hit quota. Number two, that's not where you're going to become great. And number three, that's not what matters to the buyer. The thing that matters to the buyer is the thing you should worry about. How much information do I know about this buyer persona overall? Do I know what they're metriced on? Do I know what the industry average is? Do I know at what point it causes a problem? Do I know, like, for instance, skeleton, do I know anything about it? No, except I'm like, cool, fast, it's interesting. Do I know how many seconds it takes to get from, the first part to the second part, off the ramp? I don't even know what it's called, off the ramp. No. So how much should this person talk to me? None. Why? I can't add any value. I don't know anything about them. They shouldn't talk to me. There's no amount of technique that's going to help with that. And even if it does, it's a travesty, because worst case scenario, I say something, dude believes it, and then he runs smack into a wall face first because I gave him some advice that was trash. Why? I don't know anything. So the thing I would prioritize for sure is learning about your buyer, how you can do that. If you want to be simple about it in the beginning, the reason I'm so fired up is because I know how much this can change your day. Put a 15-minute block at minimum. The important thing is that there's a quote that I once read that said, there is no Herculean effort that can outrun a daily task if truly done daily. And what that means is you can't just run 50 miles. And even if it's it's a long time, it's like, but if I just run 15 miles, like however many miles, 5 miles a day or whatever, but I only do that once, the 5 miles a day is going to eventually outrun that. So I would be scheduled. There are several different writers, authors, I would call them content creators, but mostly like classic lit. And when you read descriptions about their life, every single one of them, there's one that I'm thinking of in specific. His wife said whenever he passed away, and it was like 100 years ago, she said if there's one word to describe him, it was scheduled. And that's what I would lean into. So I put 15 minutes at the beginning of every day. I'm going to learn about my buyer. It is less important of what you learn. It's more important that you learn, number one, and put in the habit of, it doesn't matter what's going to happen. I don't care if my cat just vomited in the plant. In this 15 minutes, I am going to learn about my buyer, look up articles, look up blogs, listen to podcasts, go to networking events. If there's a choice to listen to an objection handling webinar and a webinar that your buyer listens to, listen to that webinar. The more that you do this, the more aggressively that you're just going to be cranking up the dial of how effective you are. Truly cranking up the dial. So I would put a minimum of 15 minutes. The most important thing is that you actually do it in that 15 minutes. You don't say, I'll do it tomorrow. And the other important thing is that you don't quit. So even if you miss like 3 days or whatever, I'd be like, that sucks. Don't repeat it. I'd be like, don't repeat it back. But tomorrow, I'm not going to use an excuse to just throw away the week. Tomorrow, I'm going to learn about my buyer. So industries and averages of their metrics, at what point they cause a problem, what all those metrics are. There's usually about, 50 that are important. Learn them. How much time will that take? It doesn't matter. Just 15 minutes a day at minimum. Once you're doing that regularly, you can increase it to 30 and increase it to an hour if you want. But the most important thing in the beginning is learning about your buyer. From me to you, it does not matter what else you learn. If you only had one thing to do, that would be the most important things, because then every time you get on the phone with your buyer, you naturally start asking questions that matter and naturally start spitting out data points, and they lean in. So that is the third most important thing from a schedule perspective. I'd put on my calendar today, here's an invite to myself, and don't skip it. It's easy to skip it. Don't skip it. Okay, let's go into lap 4. I'm blowing everyone's mind. How is everyone doing? I think people are probably confused emotionally. Let's go to lap 4. Confused emotionally. They're like, has someone taken over Beck's body? How to protect your time and when to do non-prospecting activities. Okay. This is very important, a very important topic. I would argue my success has come down to a couple things. Number one, I got my teeth kicked in. I had to go through a very painful process where I learned that the world doesn't owe me anything. I was that rep. I blasted past quota, but then I was like, would fill in my CRM. I'm like, you updated, Brendan. Like, I was bad. I was really bad. I had to learn that. But one thing that is very important, is that you protect your time and you protect your attention and protect your focus and protect your priorities and your heart. I don't mean that from an emotional view. I mean that from a focus view. Focus is very important. Like, I know this is on a social media platform, which I have clearly been shadow banned on LinkedIn, so there's not much that can make it worse. Through VPNs, way to go back. I used VPNs for like 2 years. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, then it will look like it's a time in, because I'm based in France. Point being focused. Social media has destroyed humanity. And what I mean by that, as from a professional perspective, is it's not that it's good or bad, whatever these topics are, is that they are, one could argue, a waste of time. I'm not going to argue that. They are lower priority than other things if we take a step back. But our body gets confused by that they're higher priority than they are. Is fighting with a stranger on the internet about something random going to change anything? Probably not. 99.9 repeating percent chance not. That's not the question to ask, though, and for people to, grill me on, fight me in the chat with. The question to ask is not, will this be effective? It's, is this something I should be prioritizing? And is it something I should be prioritizing over everything else? It's like a haze. Like social media, you get sucked in, and then like 6 hours later, you come out and it's like a casino. You're like, what time of day is it? Blah, blah, blah. So I would think about your calendar and what you spend your time doing very, very thoughtfully. One of the only things I'm going to give myself credit for as a professional in the later years, for sure, and certainly around Flip the Script, like around when I started that, is how much I protected my time and everything that I was doing. Now, it was something that was necessary. Of like, if I don't do this during these 5 minutes, very bad stuff happens to me. Of like something that's very important. However, I would be remiss. I think the lion's share of why people aren't successful is nothing other than themselves. Which there's a time and a place for that in your life. Of you're like, I just want to waste time. I just want to waste time. But I would think through what you're doing on the daily, in the macro and in the micro. The things that you do the most regularly are very important, very, very important. It's not just the macro. It's like the things that I do every single day, but I do every single day. It doesn't even matter if it's 20 minutes for the positive and the negative. That's why I'm saying learn about your buyer for 15 minutes every single day, because that can be helpful. If you're doing something else every single day, then it can hurt you. So the average American spends 2 hours and 42 minutes per day on social media alone, 14 hours in front of screens, 6 hours on the internet per day. So think about that. So I would be very intentional with, if I'm going to be on the internet or I'm going to be on social media, what am I supposed to be accomplishing on social media? Like, part of it, people would say, well, Beck, you're telling me to research my prospects. I'm like, totally. With my reps, I gave them 15 minutes, 2 15-minute slots a day to socially listen. And what I meant by that was scan through to see what people are saying in the market, and to like I would tell them to add their buyers at the beginning of the sequence and organically comment on their buyer stuff if they had point of view, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you get 2 15-minute periods. That's it. If I find you on LinkedIn, other than you're doing prospect research, you go into SDR jail. I'm going to handle it. Why? And I was savage about this with reps. Why? Because I was savage about making them successful. And I knew that was one of the biggest time sucks, because it's easy. So it makes you think you're working when you're not actually working. So I'd say with everything, but especially with social media, LinkedIn, blah, 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 Even prospect research, you keep it within a limit. 5 minutes for prospect research, beginning of every sequence, and then you're done. Don't do, spend 45 minutes. I have found it as an aversion tactic to actually doing stuff that I need to do. So the other thing I would be careful of is internal meetings. Oh, we meet with marketing once a week for an hour. Why? So that we can get to know what they're doing. I'm like, could be an email. I meet with my AE for an hour once a week. Why? So we can talk about accounts. I'm like, what'd you learn about what accounts? And they're like, well, I'm like, nothing. You just kind of had a little powwow. Even coaching, if you are not prepping for the session and the leader is not prepping for the session, if there's not stuff set beforehand or they haven't watched the call, pull it. Why? You protect your time. So I'm like, I would pull it. Do we need to do this every single week? Like, is this going to be meaningful? Is this going to be intentional? If we're going to do coaching, we're going to do coaching, right? If not, if it's just like in the moment, one of the biggest things I say with leaders is don't just do in the moment. And I think, show me that you prepared for this. Part of that disqualifies the coaching from happening. And I'm like, good. Meaning it needs to be correct. It needs to be thought through. It needs to be intentional and structured and meaningful and objective and on a sheet. Or pull it. Why? Activity's better at that point. So I would think about how much time do I spend doing that? The last two that I'll say is marketing's going to approach you and ask you to come to events and do, random whatever. And there's going to be opportunities to do like sales enablement stuff, onboarding for new reps, blah, blah. The reason I'm mentioning it so heavily and semi-derogatorily is not because I don't think that there's a lot to that. It's because it's not your job. Your job is to increase your ability as a rep and to hit quota. Those are your pieces. I see a lot of people grabbing onto those things with good-ish reason. Really, the deep down reason is they don't want to do prospecting. Why? It's hard and it sucks. It's more hard, and what sucks more is elongating out your SDR experience because you can't get promoted because you're not blasting out quota. Get good, get fast, get good and get good quickly and get good in a very intentional way at the core skill. All of that other stuff, that just lengthens out the time that it takes you to. Prospecting is hard, very, very hard, especially from the wear and tear emotional view. So the only way to make it harder is to do all this random extra stuff that doesn't help you hit quota. I can't promote you as a leader if you're not past quota. That is the one thing you should be worried about. If you're an SDR and you want to outrun your rep, is not like, how do I prepare to become an AE? It's like, how do I hit quota right now? That's what your leader cares about. And that's what your leader's leader cares about. So I would protect my time in terms of focus. That means social media. That means going to events. That means networking stuff. That means sales enablement. That means, there's this internal onboarding stuff and blah, blah, blah. And the marketing team wants me to go to an event. And it's like, I can do it maybe if I can squeeze it in this time, but you have to view it for exactly what it is from your view and from their view. And you have to rein them in. If you don't, they won't. Is what is revenue generating? What will cause booked meetings? And that is activity, that is learning your buyer, and that is personalization in the research. Those are the three most important things. Don't forget your role. I know it's not the intention, and that's why I'm being so truly heartfelt about it, is all those people use you for whatever, but think about those things. That is the focus. That's why I'm against personal brand. Next lap. It's just, it's a distraction. Okay. A few comments about my disdain for personal brand. There's a comment box. Go to Min Mather on LinkedIn. You write him all your spicy notes for how I think personal brand's a wash. Anyhow. Okay. Top traps, time sucks for an SDR. I really covered these, so I'm going to be very quick about them. The ways that people are going to waste your time and the things that you're going to do to waste your time. Ways people are going to waste your time. Marketing will come to you and say like, hey, can you attend this event? Hey, can you follow up on these content leads? Can you gut this list? Why? It helps marketing with their stuff, but it doesn't help you with your stuff. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying don't be a team player, but realize one thing. Even if you're a team player and you're going to all these conferences and marketing loves you, does your boss love you because of your number one? And number two, if you're doing all this extra gravy, but you didn't hit this core quota, it does not matter how much gravy. Why? It's gravy because that's not your role, right? So marketing's the first party. They're not the most guilty party, but they are the first party of, and they need people. So I'm not, again, saying don't do it. Just keep it in mind of what it is. The second time suck is, sorry, I'm just going to throw SDR leaders in there. I love us. I am one of everyone. Don't get mad at me on the line. I truly, to my core, love SDR leadership, and it is a grind. SDR leaders get beat up irrationally more than they should. They make less money than a sales leader, but you go up to any sales leader and you say, hey, well, why don't your reps get into tank prospecting? Oh, well, that's not their expertise. And well, they don't have time for that. I'm like, yeah, it's because they don't know how to do it. SDR is tough. I've done both leaderships, and SDR is the toughest. It's really tough, but I'm going to throw us in the fire for a second. SDR leadership, a time suck is one-on-ones and coaching sessions if they're not structured. If they're not meaningful, structured, and thought through, meaning you should prepare as a rep for the session by being like, this is a call and why. And the leader should too. There should be a punchline list of stuff for them to cover before they come to the session. It shouldn't be all in the moment. If it is, cancel it. Why? It is not worth anything. The I thinks won't get you anywhere, even if it's out of team. This is another thing. They'll put up the email. What does everyone think about this email? Just because it's a top performer doesn't mean they know why. It's a waste of time. So I think is this a waste? It's a trap, a really common trap. Another trap is any kind of internal meetings. Marketing syncs of marketing and SDR, of sales syncs of sales and SDR. I can say hypothetically it works out. It does not in execution. I have looked at so many teams over and over and over again, and people get confused. It's kind of like people get a nice response from an email. They're like, man, it's the best email that I've ever had. And they'll be like, see, look, I'm doing great. I'm like, Brendan, on the back end, it says, but I can't take a meeting because I'm not the right person, or whatever it is. And I'm like, don't get confused. I'll wrap it up with saying this. Any kind of advanced level of games, like I almost said User Gems. Shout out User Gems. That's a platform, executive term platform. Jewel Mania, or what's that? Candy Crush. In the beginning, it's about crushing all the stuff. And the more advanced levels, they'll put all these like chocolate balls and blah, blah, all over the place. You're like, I'm killing it. But you didn't realize that the only goal of the session, the only way you win is when these ice blocks were busted up. And those, even though they look less important and less hard, there's only a couple of them. They're over on the side. By the end of the session, or they run out of lives because they were focused on all these chocolate balls and stuff that looks like they're winning, but they forgot about the goal. There is a lot of difficulty in remembering your goal, keeping that top of mind. So they're banking on you forgetting and thinking it's just about general success. So internal meetings, any marketing syncs or sales syncs, and most people, again, they put it on the calendar because they're like, hypothetically, this would be important. And I hear it in math, but it's never, everyone's on Slack. No one's listening. And I'm like, then just pull it instead of giving everyone the respite. So internal meetings is another time trap. Social media is a huge time trap. Limit it. If you want to be successful, limit it. If you don't, then don't. If you want to get fired and bounce from job to job and be mediocre, which is fine. I get it. I've been there where I'm like, I just want to be very mid at this at best. Then stay on social media all day, personal brand all day. If you want to be good, and if you want to use your time wisely, realize that the years when you're young are arguably the most important in your career. What you do then sets you up or makes it extremely hard on the back end to undo what you do in those first 10 years. So keep that in mind. So social media is a huge time trap. Meetings with AEs is a huge time trap. Sales enablement or doing anything that's like helping the broader team is a huge time trap. Onboarding is a huge time trap. Doing any kind of webinars is a huge time trap. I would just think about it view it for exactly what it is. And we're going to sum up. It is a non-revenue generating activity. That is what it is. It's not setting you up for future leadership because you're not going to get there if you miss quota by 98%. which is the number one thing you need to be worried about. Why it is difficult. Use your calories first on what is difficult. Otherwise, you are going to get up that mountain and you are not going to have enough gas to get back down. So I would just do what's most difficult first. Even if you're taking a break and you're like, I'm going on social media, like there are certain times in my day where I'm like, I just want some junk food. So I go to social media or whatever it is. But I know that. And I'm like, Beck, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to research garbage, absolute garbage. I'm like, go on social media and just like, doom scroll, blah, blah. But no, that's what, even be intentional with your rest. There's sometimes when I'm like, I just don't have it in me. I'm like, I really want to eat this bag of whatever, then do that. But know what you're doing when you're doing it. Use that so you can go longer in the long term. One of the most important things about success is intentionality and focus. Focus, focus, focus. And in SDR, it's extremely important because the role is so tough. So it's easy to do these other things. Do the other things first. Focus on those. If you want to get good, focus on your buyer, focus on your activity, focus on the revenue generating activities. How much activity you're doing, how much quality is it, and why. Then, let everyone else worry about it. I planned 2 huge tours to all my vendors' dismay with 0 meetings, text messages, stuff. Why? I didn't have the time. Why? Because I was focusing on what needed to be focused on, in my opinion. So I'm like, you would have to fight me with a blade to get time on my calendar. Why? Because if I don't prioritize it, no one else will. And I'm really prioritizing, the others, my clients, blah, 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 even if it's for the content. I'm like, I need to be researching this topic and learning these 50 statistics, which means not commenting sick picture, Brendan, on social media. So I'm very intentional about my time. That's me in my latter life. Early on, I was just junk food galore. So I just think about that of, is this a time trap? Is this something that's truly progressing me towards my quota or not? And even if I'm going to spend time doing it, know of like, that's exactly what this is. And I'm using it as rest. So I'm using it intentionally. Racers do this all the time. As a runner, you rest intentionally. Why? It helps you go further in the long run. That was a great clip for the background. Let's go into the last lap. I think it's the last lap. Yeah, it's the last lap. Okay. How to collaborate with your AE. This will even be short. How was that ski jump? Slovenians are very, very, they're intense about ski jump. And Germans. When the Germans were jumping, they go, ee, so loud. Slovenia, when they won the gold, it was just, anyhow. Speaking of focus and distraction, how to collaborate with your AE. Okay. So pairing up with an AE is very important. They're not your friend. So what the meeting should be about. I would listen to them, but I would be like, what you're there to do is to get there is a certain amount of research that is not in the CRM. With top performing AEs, sometimes it's like 98% of it. What you are there to know, if you're one-to-one in that mapping case, most teams aren't. It can be all over the place. So you're going to have to think about it. If you support 15 AEs, you can't do this. I would do it as much as I can. I would think of it like top of the muffin. I can only have a certain piece of this muffin. So however much, if I have 15 AEs, I can only do, 5 minutes a piece. What I'd be there to do is understand for their accounts, which accounts are the most important and why. What is the research that they know? What is the context? There is no AE that has everything in the CRM. Sometimes they're like, let me just tell you about this account. I would use them for that. Have they been in it before? Have they talked to someone? Have they not talked to someone? Even when they ask you of like, hey, will you multi-thread with this person? I would ask them why. So AEs have the habit sometimes, which I get it, but AEs have the habit of trying to get you to do actions that will help them, but won't help you. I would know how I am metriced. If I'm metriced on booked meetings, initial meetings only, and they're like, hey, will you multi-thread to get this person back on the line, but that won't help you with the meeting? Again, I view it as a non-revenue generating activity. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying think about it in that context. What I would not use the AE for, number one, is they're going to give you a certain amount of tips on prospecting. Know that some of them are better, some of them are worse. It does not mean if they're an AE, it does not mean that they're successful in prospecting, and it does not mean that their advice is correct. Keep that in mind. Don't tell them that in the moment, but keep that in mind. And everyone has an opinion on email, especially email. Cold call, I think there's instant feedback that you're not great. So people are humbled more in cold call, so they'll admit that. But I relate selling and cold email to kissing. It's like everyone thinks they're a good kisser because there's no instant feedback that they're bad. Truly. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm great. I'm great at cold email. People who have spiced up opinions. I've seen in the past, the people who have the most opinions are the people the first behind quote. You would think that would update them, that maybe they don't know everything. It is a slippery slope. So keep in mind, just because AEs give you advice on how to send this is a cold email I'd send. Now, I let them talk. Why? Because it's insulting to not. But keep that in mind. That's exactly what that is. Also, keep in mind, sometimes that can be your leadership. They don't know what makes a good email. You have to go figure that out. And I wouldn't cry about it. I would just go figure it out. That's what I did. So I'm like, I think that there's a bunch of opinions. I don't believe that this is thought through and that this is necessarily correct. So I just started studying. Study, psych. Not like psychology, the aesthetic of an email, acronyms, pattern interrupts, on and on, just an ongoing habit. It wasn't studied at one point in my life. I have to learn, different theories every single week, at least 3 different theories every single week, and 5 new words, and I have to use them in context. Why? It's important. So make that importance of yours. Keep in mind that AEs are going to give you advice about prospecting, and most of the time, I'm going to say most of the time and be nice. It's wrong. I wouldn't tell them that. But the value that you can get out of that meeting is what accounts are important to them. What accounts have they not called on already that they have not been successful in booking that are important to them, and why? The details. What's the interaction between them and the account? What's the Rachel and Ross history? Have they met with someone? Have they not met with someone? Like, that is not in the CRM, and that you don't know, and that is very important. Sometimes it's like they've already met with someone. And even if you tried to set a meeting with, it's going to cause a blow up. But they're like, send them in, right? So I would ask them about what accounts are important to them and why. I also would not go through the time suck of listening to their calls to be a top performing AE. I'm sorry. The way to become a top performing AE is to learn about your buyer. It's not like, think of it like this, of like a whole bunch of expats move to France, don't learn French by the book or get any feedback. And then they record their conversations one way with French people, because they've done it for a long period of time. Doesn't mean that they're good. Doesn't mean that you should do the same things. You might be like proactively learning the things that are incorrect. So just think all of that through. So the thing that I would use that meeting for sure, is account research, meaning what are the most important accounts to them? Why? What's the criteria? What's the history? And the other kind of side note thing that I'll do, and then we're going to close out. The side note thing that I do is, and I get it, AEs are like, sometimes they don't value SDRs. That's the truth. I'm not going to go into, sometimes they don't value SDRs. And even when you book a meeting, they'll be like, is it inbound or outbound? And I'm like, fair. They want to see if the skill was really there. Was this skill really there? And it's not from a bad place. They're like, I need more pipeline or blah, because they're behind quota. So they want to, kind of push that button a little bit. So the thing that I do is I'm like, I get a clear list from them out of all these accounts. Can you give me the 5 most important ones to you that you have not been able to book yet? I'm like, I want the most important and ones that you have not, from your horse's mouth, been successful in booking. And I want to book one of those, especially if I'm early on as an SDR. But I want to have that intentional conversation, because sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, well, I already had an in, or, oh, I already had blah, 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 or, oh yeah, but. And I'm like, no, I want you to define, I want you to call the shot, and then I'm going to work my butt off to get that shot. Now, don't only work on that account, meaning just because it's an important account doesn't mean that that's booked volume of meetings. Keep that in mind. But, that's one that I would think about. So in summary, and we're going to close out. Your time, your attention, your focus, what you do every day is extremely important. So I would just think it through. Be intentional. You're smart. Everyone's smart on this line. I know that. And everyone wants the same thing, you be successful. So I just think it through. What am I doing and why am I doing it, especially when you're younger? The things that you do early on can really set you up for success or clip it. So the next time marketing is like, hey, can you come to this event? You're like, oh, that'd be awesome because then I can, be easier. Just think about it. If you're going to do it, just think about, what that is. That's everything. I finished way ahead of time. Skeleton style. Tune in tomorrow where I'm going to be in the Milan apartment tomorrow. This is my last day in Bormio. So tune in tomorrow where I will be in a new Milan setup. I'm going to be in Milan for the rest of the time. And we are going to be going back to Discovery. So I know we did on the super late day, when I was up and down the mountains, we did the first session on Discovery questions. So tomorrow we are going to be doing the second part of Discovery questions, problem questions, impact questions, 3-step process, find misdiagnosis, so that you can add value to your buyer's day. That's everything. That's the life in a top performing SDR. I will see y'all tomorrow. Yeah. See y'all tomorrow, and where we will kick off on Discovery questions, and we will dig in there. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. Arrivederci for now. Ciao.